Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous Podcast. Today is part two of our Beth C interview. Hi, Beth. We've been trying to figure this out for a little bit now. I think we got it down.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
All right. So where we last picked off was when your brother got home from a group home.
Yes, my brother got home from a group home probably around when I was 12, and we learned that he had schizophrenia when he was in the group home, and they released him when he was 18, and so being 18, he didn't have to take his meds, so he got off his meds and started drinking and then using methamphetamines. And schizophrenia and meth are a really bad mixture.
Do you know where he was getting all his drugs from?
Around,
He was a young kid. He's a young kid, right?
Well, I mean, I was getting drugs too when I was 13.
This is true. Where did you at that age? Who would it's then again, part of my language. I guess there are scumbags out there that'll sell to the 13-year-olds.
There is, and but that's the thing too, like it was more like me getting it from like a 16, 17-year-old that was getting it from somebody else. Like it wasn't very common, at least in North County, for a dealer to deal to a 13-year-old. Like that's pretty against the rules, like it was more me getting it from somebody else that got it from that person,
Like a middleman. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly, like a middleman, like yeah, that's not very acceptable, so I got that one right. So my brother and I were both in our addiction at this time. I was still cutting, just struggling with bulimia. My little brother was, ditching school and partying too. We had our party house. A week before my older brother died, he was trying to make his amends to me somehow for the abuse that was put on me when I was younger. I didn't let my mom know the first Christmas he was back, actually, because he tried to apologize to me about what he had done. At first, she didn't believe him, which I didn't blame her, because it was a hard thing to understand your baby hurting your baby. A couple days later, she ended up giving me a hug and letting me know that she did, believe me what happened. I don't know if it was her confronting him about that, because she never let me know if she confronted him about it, or if it's just his drug addiction, but he was kicked out, no longer allowed to live with us. My mom was working 2 jobs trying to keep a roof over her head, in Carlsbad with single mom. It's not easy.
Do you know where your brother went at the time when he got thrown out?
When he got thrown out, I knew he went to the streets, where we all go, the streets, try to go find someone, same park, different place, different parks is where we always go. Anyone that's kicked out the street, you go to a park, and when you go to a park, it's where you meet everybody, that's where you're accepted, so we were both in our addiction. A week before he died, it was him trying to make amends for what he had done. So there was him ODing on pills and getting 5150, which 5150 is a harm to yourself or harm to others. So if you're trying to kill yourself or hurt yourself, or if you're trying to hurt someone else. And before you're 18, you can legally be 5150 and be held for at least 3 days and not be able to sign yourself out because you're not 18. But once you're 18, you can get signed in 5150, but you can sign yourself out. And
we were talking about that before. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't, but when you're 18, you're 18, it should be 21, truthfully, but yeah, so that week of him trying to make amends and killing himself, the last the last day was him locking me and himself into our house, kicking my mom and my brother outside, and us arguing, and me just not knowing how to process him trying to make amends, not knowing why he was doing what he was doing, so I didn't, there's a very small part of me that forgave him because he was my brother, and I didn't want him to kill himself. But truly, like, he knew I didn't forgive him, and so at some point, we finally got him to open up the door, and we look outside, and there's a whole bunch of cops, with tasers and guns pointed at him, and I don't, something, I think it clicked to him that I didn't forget.
What did you said he walked outside to police with tasers and guns. What happened?
No, he let me go outside first.
Well, what happened that there were police there?
My mom called the cops and let them know that.
Where were you, at home?
At home. That
you gotta explain that one to us.
Yeah, we're at home. She called the cops because he had shoved my mom and my brother outside and locked me in the house with him, and he was threatening to kill himself in front of me. And so with previous 5150s, him trying to kill himself, it wasn't just a couple of cops, it was a whole bunch this time, because it's considered like a hostage situation. He had a knife to his throat and he had me locked in the house. And so he finally opened up the door because he realized that nothing was going to happen. Like, we were mad at each other. I didn't forgive him. Even though I didn't want him to kill himself, I couldn't forgive him for what he had done, and so he opened the door, he let me go outside, he went and grabbed my snake, which we both loved animals. So I don't, I think that was his final, like, pushing us away, pushing me away, like, okay, fine. So he threw my snake outside and I snapped and I was like, fuck you, just go kill yourself. And so they got him down outside and they arrested him and they took him to the hospital, and they let him check himself out a couple hours later, and because he was 18 they couldn't hold him. And me and my mom and my brother at home, just, trying to wind down after all of that. And probably about 10:30, the cops came to the house and came to the door with his bloody skateboard, and he had stepped in front of the train. He stepped in front of the Amtrak, so it was fast, but it was later on we ended up finding out that one of our friends' moms was right there when he did it, and
so this was in front of people?
Yeah, it was right in front of people, right in front of Coyote, right next to the transit center, downtown Carlsbad. There's bars everywhere. There's people everywhere,
So a lot of people witnessed this then.
Yeah, a lot of people witnessed it, and when you get hit by a fast-moving train, like, your body gets chopped up. So there was just like body parts flying everywhere. And one of our friends' moms got hit with body parts and bruises all over her, like, from this happening. And fucking gnarly. So at this point, my mom had relapsed, don't blame her. And me and my family just went nuts. Just didn't go to school. Cops were coming to our house all the time because we were on the STAR program, because legally you have to go to school, and so the cops would come in the morning, come pick us up, take us to school, and we would ditch. It was just like a daily occurrence. And then, they gave us leniency because they knew what happened. They know that we were messed up. And, so they're patient and lenient with us. Like the days that I did go to school, like I would ditch class, and sometimes I would just like go into the office and they would let me sit in the office and just like talk to the therapist or just like do office stuff, like answer the phones or print things or help the nurse, just because I couldn't be in class with people, but I didn't want to be on the streets, you know. Um, so I kept on using. By the time I got to high school, I myself have been 50 multiple times. By the time I was about 16, something clicked. I was just like, okay, my brother's dead. I'm trying to kill myself. My mom's gonna have 2 dead kids. Like, I can't do this to her. So finally, I asked for help. At first it didn't, get to them because I'd been 5150 so many times that they were just like, she's just gonna get 5150 and sent back home. Like after 3 days, and we're gonna keep on doing this. And so I really had to tell them, like, if you don't get me help, I'm gonna go home right now and hang myself. Like, that's just what I'm gonna do. And they got me on a special program, AB 2627, something like that, where the government or the state pays for you to go to a program. So I went to a year residential treatment center for dual diagnosis for mental and drug abuse.
Oh, that's great.
When I was 16. Yeah, it's called Oak
I'm
Grove.
dual diagnosis.
Yeah, it was the best thing I ever did. It changed my life. Like, it really, really did. Like that small click in my head of like, don't do this to mom. And going to that place, best thing I ever did. It taught me a lot of coping mechanisms. Like, it not only sent me to 12-step for myself, but going to Alateen, and understanding, the ways on why other people use, not just me, but to understand my other loved ones and their addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the best thing I ever did. I stayed clean for a while.
What's a while?
I was there for a year, so I was clean a year. Moved in with my aunt and uncle because I didn't want to go from like super strict like stability structure to bam being home and mom never being there and me being able to do whatever I want. So I moved into my aunt's house up in the mountains. So I was, kind of like cut off from life. Like it was a step down. Like I had some freedom. There was alcohol in the house. Like if I wanted to relapse, I could have. But I stayed clean there. I tried to do school online and it just didn't. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do it. So it was probably like 2 years I stayed clean. Yeah, because once I turned 18, that was when I got that money, from our dad dying and my mom suing him. Me and my older brother that killed himself got 20,000 when we turned 18. And me not knowing how to have money or ever having money, I spent it really quick. I gave it away. Like, I spent it on drugs and gave it away and just didn't know what to do with that money. And so first, of course, I relapsed on weed and alcohol, and then I don't know, like a month later, I relapsed on meth. So I had about 2 years clean.
It was a long time.
Yeah, it was a long time, especially after all of that. Like all that happening, and boom, okay, I'm gonna stay clean. But I mean, the first year I wasn't programmed, so I had to stay clean. Um, yeah, yeah, I relapsed when I was 18. That was just not long after my 18th birthday. My mom had stopped working. The depression just had gotten her. So we ended up, me and my mom and my brother ended up homeless in Carlsbad, where my brother had killed himself. Like, here's the tracks, and here's a bar, and there's a little park right here, and we would hang out in that park because that was one of the homeless parks. Like literally right next to the tracks that he killed himself. Just torturing ourselves. You know, um, just getting high every day and drinking every day. Like I would go and hit the pipe, away from my mother. My mom would mostly drink. I'm pretty sure she was doing meth at that time. But just really using pretty bad. I met a guy and it's he was the typical like looking gangster. Like I should have known better, but I was self-interest behavior. I was in my addiction. I was like, oh, cool, bad boy, let's do this. And so he was great, first couple weeks. And we went to the mall one day because he get paid to do surveys at the mall, and I didn't realize it at the moment, but he was schizophrenic too. And so we leave the mall, and he's like, give me your purse. I'm like, okay. I give him my purse, and he starts tripping out. He starts searching it, throwing everything out of there. And he's like, I know you were talking to him, and I know you got his number. I'm like, what? Hey, what are you tripping on? Like I knew he drank, but I didn't think that he did any other drugs. Like we smoked weed every once in a while together, but like he didn't like doing drugs. And so it was like drinking every once in a while, smoking weed every once in a while. So I didn't think he was tripping, And so in his head, I had gotten some dude's phone number at the survey place, and I was trying to meet up with him or something. And I was like, "What, dude? Like, what's going on with you? Like, we can go in and figure this out right now. Let's go inside, And we go to walk to inside, and I thought I had ran into the glass doors, but I hadn't. He had smacked me so hard that I freaking almost blacked out and went back, and that's just like once I got up and I realized what happened, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? This dude, okay, I gotta get away from this dude. So like I made it into the mall, and I made it to a security guy, and I'm like, hey, it's my boyfriend, like he just hit me, like I need to get away from him, And so I got away from him. I ended up taking the bus, back up to Carlsbad. And a couple of weeks later, he borrowed his friend's car and grabbed me. He kidnapped me. And for a year straight, I was in this bamboo field, and I didn't know exactly where I was. Like I came out every once in a while to like we would go out and like get some food and stuff, but like I didn't recognize the area. And sooner or later, like I saw like signs and I saw like shit, and I was like, okay, I'm somewhere in Oceanside, which is right next to Carlsbad, but I had no idea where I was. And he was with me 24/7. Like I went to the bathroom, he was right outside the door, and I wasn't allowed in there, or he wasn't allowed. He would stay right there, like nobody else could like get near me. Probably 6 months into it, like he let me call my mom, and I called and I'm like, okay, I'm okay, I love you, that's all I got to say, and he wouldn't even let me drink or smoke weed. Like I had to stay sober through his craziness, like we just be like sitting there at our camp, and next thing you know, he start tripping, like he was talking to me because he's schizophrenic, he start talking to somebody, and like he'd be like, you should go for a walk. And I'd be like, oh shit, this is my time, I'm gonna go for a walk, and I start walking away, and I start getting away, and I start going down this path that we've gone down before to get away from him, and then he start chasing me, and he's like, nope, come back here. And I'm like, fuck, dude, like there is schizophrenia and this like the borderline of like part of him wanted to let me go, and then I would have a chance to start like getting away from him, and then the other part would come back and be like, nope, come back, and um that happened for about a year. And one day he was drinking and he tripped out and he started stabbing himself with a fork, and I was just like, okay, trying not to look, but like, okay, what's he doing, and he stopped and he's like, you need to run now, just fucking run. And I ran as fast as I could, and I got out there, and I got to I didn't want to go to the residential area because I've been out there before, and he's beat me before out there, and nobody did anything when I was screaming for help. And so I saw a fire department, and I ran to the fire department and rang the doorbell and was like, you gotta let me in, and told them the situation. And I had them 5150 me because I was so messed up in the head from his manipulation and like from being held against my will, that I just like I didn't want to snitch him out because I was scared. I was like, he was gonna find out that I told everybody,
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the fire department 5150 me because I just couldn't, like, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't want to see my mom. I was scared to say anything. I just wanted to be safe, and that's the safest place I felt was in a hospital. Um, so they held me there for about 2 weeks because I was just the PTSD was so bad that I was like shaking randomly and like you know, not hearing things, but his voice echoing in the back of my head. That I needed they had to put me on medication because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't like shake. I was still in shock.
Yeah.
And then once I got let out of there, I went back to the streets and I started, of course, using really fucking hard. Went straight to the bottle, was drinking vodka, smoking weed, and then I was just like, okay, where's the pipe out? I need meth, because that was the only nut that made me completely feel numb. So I did that. I got in another couple relationships. The person that I dated right after that was very gentle, was not abusive whatsoever. The only problem was we had the same birthday and we were both Aries, and Aries should not date. Like it was just really, we were really good at being bad together. Like we went and lived in a canyon for like 2.5 years and just drank half-gallon of vodka every freaking day. You want to give me a hug? So it was just, our addiction was really bad together. But he was not abusive whatsoever. He was a really sweet person. But he had seizures. Like he wasn't supposed. Was one of those people that should not drink or use drugs because he already had a seizure disorder. But the alcohol and any drugs would make it way worse. So he had seizures like almost every other day. Like it was pretty bad. So we ended up breaking up because I couldn't stand being a part of me, of like I could kill myself drinking and doing drugs, but I couldn't watch myself do it with him anymore. Like I couldn't see the seizures anymore. Like I knew he needed to get help. So I told him, I love you, but we got to break up before we can't even be friends, before we mess it up too bad. And so I broke up with him. And of course I jumped to another relationship, and I ended up getting pregnant. And of course, me and my addiction, him being who he was, he's like the son of the sergeant or corporal or whatever at this Army and Navy Academy at Carlsbad. So it was, the son, thank you, baby, the son getting a homeless chick pregnant was not good, in this ritzy titsy town, being a corporal and all that. So, he was like, okay, you're gonna have to have an abortion. I'm like, I can't do this. Like I had one when I was 13 or no.
That's young.
Yeah, no, I wasn't 14. I was a pregnancy scare. I had abortion when I was 18. So I was gonna have another one at like 23. Yeah, 23. And so I got scared and I ran away. And I ran away with that boyfriend that I just broke up with. And I relapsed on meth because I wasn't doing meth when I was with the person that I was pregnant with. And so like 2 months clean off meth. But I ran away to my ex-boyfriend, started using meth again. And so at some point I was like, okay, I gotta do something. Like I'm either gonna stop doing drugs and give this child up for adoption, or like I gotta do something because it's growing, And so I was like, okay, fuck, I can't do this to him. I have to go back to him. So I went back to him and I had an abortion, and it was pretty fucking late, I just vaguely remember going to this place, driving in a cab, like going pretty far, pretty close to the border. And I know that it was illegal because it's a shady ass place, and when it was happening, like you could literally hear like babies crying and then knock. Like they were literally killing kids, like killing babies at this place. It's just fucking horrible. So I
They were
had that
killing
abortion.
babies. What do you mean they were killing
They're
babies?
killing, like, you can literally, like, when you went in there and you went into the back, like, this one girl that was next to me was probably about 6-7 months pregnant.
And they
like
performed an abortion on her?
and they aborted the baby. Like, and when you're back there, before I took any fucking drugs that they gave me, I heard babies crying and then not crying. Like, you could tell that there was a baby that was killed, and it was just like the most horrific fucking shit. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm triggered right now. Like, it was fucking traumatizing. Like, so that was that broke me pretty hard. I think that broke me harder than my brother killing himself did. Okay, real quick. Mwah. Thank you. Perfect timing. Okay, so after this happened, I was staying with him, and like he had opened up to me. He was like, I do care about you, but I'm letting you know that I'm gonna open up to you and just don't break my heart. And he was a good guy. Besides, what pretty much his dad had almost forced us to do, which I couldn't blame him. But at the same time, should have done a lot earlier. I snapped after I had the abortion. I broke. I couldn't handle what I had just done. I couldn't tell him what I heard in the clinic. Like, I didn't want to freak him out more than he was already freaked out. And so I pushed him away. I told him to stop caring about me. That I didn't love him, leave me alone. And that was me pushing him away. Go play, baby. No. That was me pushing him away so that I can get the fuck out of there and go get high. Because I wasn't ready. He wanted me to help myself get myself together, and he was gonna help me, but I wasn't ready to get clean. So I pushed him away, and I left, and I went and got high, and just kept on getting high. There's a point. Oh my god, just sitting in that park, just getting high every single day, and my mom getting drunk and all messed up, and my brother in and out of juvie, and at some point, this dude, my mom's friend, he got really loaded and told me about something. He told me that he went to this party, and pretty much he had bought this girl from the mother for some dope, and like, in his words, she didn't want it, but he took it, and pretty much saying like he raped her. And he's like fucking drunk off his ass, shows me the phone, shows me a picture of the girl, and I know the girl. She was one of my little brother's friends, and she was probably about maybe 14, just turned 15 at the time. And so I just like, I snapped. I ran around town telling everybody what he'd done. Because something that needed to be done, that hit a spot like that, from all the abuse that I had been through, that I hadn't worked through, like that it just made me snap. So I went around town telling everybody what he did, and I wouldn't shut up about it. I was like, something needs to be done. The cops knew, but they didn't have any evidence. She wasn't going to say anything, and so finally one day I snapped, and I was just like, we have to do something about this, and fucking ended up stabbing the guy, and
you did?
I ended up stabbing him. Yeah, because I was so irate. I was drunk,
Where'd you stab him?
Yeah, I stabbed him on the left side and in his stomach. And I don't know, but for some reason I thought that was my responsibility, that I needed to stab this guy. And I stabbed him and I had him jumped. I had him jumped by a whole bunch of people, and and just ran off and got drunk some more. And of course he wasn't going to open his mouth of what happened. The cops had heard the rumors about what he had done. And he went to the hospital, and for some reason, thank you, baby. Like, for some reason, like, where I had stabbed him, he had some kind of cancer. And so if I wouldn't have stabbed him right there, he was going to die from it, the cancer that he had in the stomach, and that had, like, saved him. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, like, and I wasn't ready to deal with God at that time whatsoever, whatsoever. But yeah, that was gnarly, and every once in a while, the cops would arrest him and they would, like, rough him up, because they knew what he had done, but they didn't have any evidence. They couldn't do anything to him, so they rough him up every once in a while, I ended up meeting a friend that I had met when I was pregnant, when I was staying in the county with my ex. I met this friend. They let us stay at their house, and later on, after this happened, after the abortion, after I stabbed this guy, he had asked me to come over if I wanted to hang out, get stoned, and I was like, yeah, might as well, get away from all this shit. So I went to his house and got stoned, and ended up staying with him. I stayed clean off the mat.
What'd you get stoned on?
Just weed. Yeah, we were just smoking weed because he drank, but he just smoked weed. He didn't do really any drugs. So I ended up staying with him, dating him, and moved in there, and stayed clean off the meth for about 2 years. He moved my mom and my brother in, so the whole family was off the streets. And it was going pretty good, until, like, he let me know that he wanted to be in, like, an open relationship, and I wasn't all for that. I didn't know how to do that. I was just like, if I was with somebody, I was with that person. I didn't know how to be, I wasn't into that, and at this point I had, like, fallen in love with him, so that was like, it broke my heart. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
This is my karma. I finally fell in love with someone, and this is my karma. You broke somebody's heart, now you're gonna get your heart broken, and so I started selling weed, and I started, when you sell weed, people want to trade for other things, so I started getting meth back in my pocket, and I started using again, and I didn't really want to be home because he was going on, like, dates, and he wanted to be in this open relationship. My heart was broken and I was furious, and I was using drugs again. He kind of knew, but he didn't really say anything, but he knew something was up. So a neighbor that, like, was getting kicked out of his house, he moved into the backyard into their greenhouse because they built a greenhouse. And he was, like, our gardener, and he's, helping out with cleaning up the house. And
Mommy,
and
it's broken.
1 second, baby.
Broken.
It's okay.
Okay.
And so this gardener moved into our backyard, into the greenhouse, and, like, since I didn't want to, like, go and hang out with my boyfriend, because of everything that happened, him going on the dates, I would just come home and, like, go out in the backyard and hang out with this guy who would have, like, campfire going. It was just, like, chilling. We'd smoke weed together, and he did meth and I did meth, but we didn't do it together, like, because he didn't want to, like, cause that, like, awkwardness at the house or anything like that. And so I started talking to him about like how we had broken up and how he's dating other people, and all this good stuff. And we ended up hitting off. We were friends for probably like, I don't know, a couple months before, before I kissed him, and uh, next thing you know, we're smoking spliffs, which is weed, tobacco with meth in it.
Oh, wow.
It's a joint. Yeah, and those were the bomb, dude. Yeah, I loved those things. And we would just smoke it and just have a good old time in the backyard, or do not do that. Or like run around on our bikes. You need to go draw at the table, baby. Have a good old time, and we ended up finally getting together, and at this point I was just staying in the greenhouse with him, and we're together for probably a couple months till he got a call from his family that his grandma had died in Wisconsin, and so he had to go to the funeral. So I, broken hearts, just started dating this guy right in front of my ex-boyfriend's face because he's dating other people. Jumped on a plane and went to Wisconsin with him. Dropped everything. We stayed out there for about 6 weeks and came back. And when we were out there, we didn't do any meth, but there was a lot of his mom had a lot of fentanyl patches out there and pills like Valium and all kinds of stuff. I didn't do fentanyl. I would never touch that stuff, but I did the Valium like every single day. And weed was like super, super illegal out there, but we smoked weed like once when we were out there, and the alcohol is super cheap. But we ended up coming back, and we came back, and like there's nothing. We left the whole backyard of the greenhouse with tweaker shit out there, a huge mess. And so we couldn't stay there, so we went out into the streets. We ended up staying at a mutual friend's house, which was party house.
Party?
Yeah, party house. And
You silly mommy.
that's when he started getting controlling and
So?
abusive, and
You silly mommy.
you're silly.
No, you
So fast forward a little bit. Tell us about your recovery. When did you decide to get sober?
Mom.
I decided to get sober when I got pregnant with my daughter. Altogether, I was on the streets for 9 years. And when I got pregnant with Travis, the man we were just talking about, he ended up being hooked on heroin and meth, and it made him very violent. And he didn't want to have a kid. Like at first he wanted to have a kid, but once I was actually pregnant,
Go back. Travis was your son?
No, Travis was the father of my child.
Okay.
Yeah, he started getting on heroin and meth together, and that made him very violent. And so once I told him I was pregnant, he was months before that he was fine with having a kid, but once I was actually pregnant, he didn't want to. He was like, "You need to have an abortion. Like, we can't do this. Like, I'm too hooked on heroin. Like, I'm not gonna stop." And he said the worst things he could possibly say to try to get me to have an abortion. And I told him I couldn't do it again. I was gonna do it with or without him. And I did continue using for a couple months, but I stopped, and I was just smoking weed. But I stayed on the streets the whole freaking time pregnant because I was so codependent and worried about him. I didn't want him to OD. Once I had my daughter, we stayed with his family for a few months. I stayed clean probably a month before I started using meth again. And we got kicked out of their house because we were using drugs, and sent to a shelter that we ended up getting kicked out of because of me and my big mouth and coming down. And so we got put back onto the streets, and here I am with this baby, and I'm like, I can't have my baby on the streets. Like, well, what the hell? So my friend came and picked her up, kept her for about a week, and the homeless outreach team in Carlsbad let me know about this program called Safe Families. Well, they'll take care, they'll hold on to your child. A host family will take care of your child for a short period of time, like if you're on the streets or need to go to rehab or something like that. And so at this point, CPS got involved in there, I'm a homeless person, a drug addict with a kid. Where's my kid at? And I'm like, okay, this is where she's at. And they're like, okay, we can voluntarily open up a case and drug test you right now and keep on drug testing you and get you into program, or we can take you to court. And I didn't want on paper a dirty test. So I knew I was dirty. They knew I was dirty, but I didn't want a paper that I was dirty. So like, you just have to take me to court. And so I stayed on the streets and I kept on getting high for about 3 months. My daughter was with this family. And at the end of my addiction, I remember the very last time I got high, I was sitting in a bush and I was hitting the pipe, and my mind and my addiction tried to start convincing me that I had already lost my daughter, and I hadn't. And that's when I threw the pipe and I ran out of that bush, and I was just like, fuck, I can't do this anymore, So I got a hold of the homeless outreach team. I was like, yeah, you got to take me to a program now, because I can't do this anymore. And so that was June 26th of 2019. And I've been clean since. So now I live in a sober living. I went to Kiva, a residential program, for 3 months. And I went to an outpatient program for about 9 months. And now I'm the manager at a sober living. And in June, I'll have 3 years clean.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like you're on the right path.
I am. It's not easy, but I am. For the first time, I'm clear-headed. After 2 years, I got off medication. Because I want to deal with my issues. I don't want to numb them out with pills. Because after a while, even prescribed pills become, a crutch.
Yeah.
At least to me. I was on for the 2 years, I felt borderline high. Like I was numbed out. So yeah, the last year I haven't had any medication. Quit smoking a month ago, which that was gnarly, but yeah, I'm working my steps. I have a sponsor. I go to meetings 4 to 5 times a week. Yeah, I love it. It's the best thing I ever did for myself. My daughter, like I get to keep my daughter. I get to see her grow up. I just got her backpack and she's excited about going to school. Like
yeah.
So it's amazing. It's I'm grateful for the things. I'm grateful for everything. Everything that happened. It's made me very humble. It's made me. Yeah. It's grounded me. It's made me very grateful.
No, I know
that I made it out. I made it out.
So my last question before we wrap this up is: do you have any advice for people listening or watching?
Yes. Give it to God. It doesn't matter, what God you may believe in or don't believe in. Find something, even if it's a waterfall. I believed in a waterfall for some point in my life. Like nature, if you need, just do it. You won't regret it. You really, really won't. There's gonna have tough times, but there's a saying that I wouldn't trade my best times high for my worst times sober. Like it's amazing, and once you get clean, you do it. You're just like, wow, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yeah.
And just to take it with a grain of sand. They're life lessons. I believe everything happens for a reason. It's just a chapter of your life, and it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. That's for sure.
There you go. That's some great advice. So anybody that is watching or listening, if you like what you heard, go below and click subscribe and give us a like. Check us out on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram. We're also on Facebook. If you find the Addicts Anonymous Facebook group, you can click on the events tab and it'll show you the information for our nightly Zoom meetings at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. There'll be a link there for everything and all the info to get it. So that's all we have for today. And until next time.